Okay, so like she said, my name is Andrea Nikolai, and I'm a registered dietitian, and I teach food and nutrition classes in the extension. So I know you guys are all with UF, but sometimes I think it's confusing what extension actually is. So we are, you might have heard of us, right? The shorter answer is we bring the power of the UF research and education to every county in Florida. So it's like there's a lot of really awesome things going on at UF, and the idea like long ago was that all the people should hear about this stuff, and so that's what extension does. We extend the knowledge of the university, and so we're the outreach arm of the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences, and then we partner with state, federal, and county governments, and we make scientific research and teaching accessible and ready to use for everyone. And then we're in all 67 of Florida's counties, so you can see the star, like if you're from any of those counties, see where we're at. Okay. And then, as you know, we're an equal opportunity institution, so we don't discriminate. So here's what I'm going to talk about today. So just benefits of adding herbs and spices for flavor. Just talk about 10 to highlight. I could talk for a whole afternoon on herbs and spices, and then some tips to use. Because if I teach you, if we talk about the benefits, I want you to be able to use them also. So here's a couple important things. So is it herb or herb? So fun fact, in Great Britain, the H is pronounced, and in the United States, it's pronounced herb. And then on August 29th, that's just about 2 months from now, a very important day is coming up, and it is More Herb, Less Salt Day. So we need to make sure to celebrate that. Yeah. See you, Gail. Okay, so that's important. And then herbs as seasoning. So let's talk about this. So herbs are the leaves of plants that do not have woody stems and grow close to the ground in mild climates. And then there's the spices, and they're native to warm tropical climates, and they're obtained from the roots, flowers, fruits, seeds, or bark. So the stronger, more potent flavor, and then they're used in smaller amounts. So the world's largest herb, fun fact, when I learned that, I had to put it in here. It's the banana plant. Did you guys know that? I didn't know that till I learned that. And then spices. So what would be like cinnamon? What part does, what part of the, I guess, what is that from? You guys are awesome. Thanks for helping me. Bark. Yeah, so cinnamon comes from the bark. Does anyone know like ginger, onion, garlic, where do they come from? I'm gonna read it. Root. Yeah, you guys are good. And then so what about like mustard seed, poppy seed, sesame seed? Where do they come from? Okay, I'm not even asking that. You guys are like, we got that seed. Yes. Okay, so then there's like allspice and paprika. They can come from the fruits of plants and trees. So it's kind of cool, all the different things. And saffron, if you've ever seen where it comes from, it's from the middle of the flower. So it's like actually these little things that are sticking out of the middle of the flower. And that's why it's so expensive. So it's like yellow saffron. I watched a lady picking it out once, and I was like, okay, I understand. Okay, so let's talk about the health benefits of herbs and spices. So the cool thing is they provide great flavor, and then they also help us use less salt, fat, sugar, and they still give us the great taste. So it's like, how we could just try to cut back on things and stuff. So not only are they good for us in themselves, but they're helping us use less of things that might not be so good for us. And they have those positive health benefits. It's really cool. They did a study, and so they gave 148 people like the different meatloaf. They gave them meatloaf and 2 side dishes. And so like they were in full fat versions, reduced fat versions. So it'd be like these side dishes, they're like the reduced fat version, and there's also the full fat version of them. And then they did a reduced fat version plus adding spices with them. And it turns out that the people they rated highly the ones that were full fat, and then the ones with reduced fat plus spices. So it's like it could help, if you're reducing the fat in a recipe or something, these herbs and spices can help people enjoy it more. So it's kind of a really cool thing. Okay, and then if you've heard of essential oils, they contain the leaves and the seeds and the fruit of the herbs. So something to keep on hand would be some herbs and spices. So let's talk about basil. This is probably the one that got me interested in herbs and spices just to start with and made me start studying it. It may help reduce plasma cholesterol. It's an antioxidant, protect against different carcinogenic cancers, anti-inflammatory, and it has similar properties to aspirin. So this was the thing that got me. So I read about that and everything. So there's this COX enzyme that promotes inflammation, and the urgerol, which is a component of basil volatile oils. It's been studied a lot, and they found that it can block that inflammation. So it's really cool in that it does work similarly. That's what things like aspirin do, is they block that COX enzyme, and basil has been found to do the same thing. And so kind of cool, right? And it's an Italian cuisine. You can combine, so ways to use it, right? Combine with watermelon and feta for a refreshing salad. Caprese salad, you might have seen that. So that's kind of what the picture is, where you'd put fresh basil, mozzarella, and tomatoes. And then a panini, you could do that too, do it that way. And there are also, just so you know, there's lots of different kinds of basil. So if you don't like the traditional one, there's also like cinnamon basil, and it smells like cinnamon. And there's purple basil, there's Thai basil. And so that one tastes a little bit more like licorice. Depends on what you like. Yes, and I'm with you, Patricia. Good call. She said it's good. Yeah. Okay, so then also using it in teas, flavored water, salads, summer rolls. Like, I don't know if you know what they are, but I have a picture of them there. It's with that rice paper, and a lot of times they have a lot of fresh herbs in them. So if you ever have a bountiful crop of herbs, you should look up a recipe for some summer rolls. They're pretty good. And then I have a coworker who actually, she used to use spinach in her smoothies, but she found that it was a little hard to grow in the Florida summers. And so she started using some basil instead. And so that would be another good way to get it. And then, yes, pesto is the number one thing, right? So that is, it's the most commonly used herb for pesto. You can use other herbs, but that one is one. Tomato, basil, bruschetta. So that's like that on the toasted bread. And then here's pesto. Pesto. Okay, pesto, I can talk. And then, okay, let's talk about ginger. So when I say ginger, what do you guys think of for a benefit of ginger? Oh, Melissa said lemon basil, great salad dressing. Good call. Yes, Sandy. Yes, your tummy, digestion, anti-nausea. They found it really can help, especially with the kind of nausea you get when you're like morning sickness. Can help a lot with that. So it helps with nausea, seasickness, upset stomach, and it has gingerol, which is kind of, I don't know if anybody's tried ginger just straight, like the fresh one by itself. It's kind of has a spicy flavor in it, and so it has a chemical that's related to, that gingerol is related to capsaicin and pepperdine. So capsaicin is in spicy pepper, and pepperdine is in black pepper. So kind of that's why it has that characteristic spiciness. It's like related to all those things. It's kind of a neat thing. And then a study has found that the ginger can help our joints. So they found that people who eat more ginger helps improve like how they felt with joints, like rheumatoid arthritis and things like that. So that would be another fun thing. And it's definitely an antioxidant to help protect against tissues and organs. Yes, you guys are good. And I definitely agree with you. So I went to Sri Lanka. I got the opportunity to do that. And we stayed at a YMCA every single morning. They bought us the same drink, and it was like water, hot water, you know, with a bunch of ginger at the bottom. And so that was like our breakfast tea in the morning. And it's, you know, it helps with digestion. So it makes sense, right? I have my I went with a friend, and he was way ahead of the game. He used to eat the ginger. That was before I realized any of the benefits of that, doing that kind of thing, but he probably was really good to go. So you can make your own tea, right? I think somebody even said it. Yeah, Patricia. Oh, that'd be good with green tea. Yeah, she said. Okay, so then adding dishes where you want like a gentle spice, like it's good on carrots, sweet potatoes, winter squash, and then also in Asian cooking. Okay, so does anyone, the next one we have to talk about, it's the most voted the most popular spice in the United States. Does anyone want to guess what it is? So it's a spice. Salt, not salt, no. These are good guesses, you guys. Okay, it is actually cinnamon. Good job. Okay, yeah, some of you guys got that. It's voted the most popular spice in the US, and it's derived from the Greek word that means sweet wood. That's kind of cool, right? And it has so when they evaluated the antimicrobial action of like these 9 essential oils, they evaluated, let's see, lemongrass, thyme, clove, bay, marjoram, sage, basil, oregano, and cinnamon. And the two that had the highest antimicrobial were oregano and cinnamon. So it's kind of, it can be really helpful that not only could we use like these things um, as just benefits to our health when we eat them, but they can also help, prevent microbials from going in the foods that we eat. So it's I'll mention it in some of the other ones too that have similar effects. But it's like if we put herbs and spices in our dishes, like if you make like a potato salad or something, say you that's not a good well, yeah, just using different herbs in there can actually help prevent microbes from forming so it wouldn't go bad as quickly, which is a really fun fact. So cinnamon is antioxidants, antimicrobial, and then there's been some studies that found that it may help lower blood sugar, kind of act like an insulin. And so it's right now we're at like 50%. The studies haven't been a lot of them haven't been really well done, so it's hard to know for sure. But it's about half and half. Some show that it does really help, and some show not as much of effect, but nothing wrong with it. So we can go with that. Okay, and so rosemary, that is the next one. It's really good for memory. It's also antioxidants, antimicrobial. So that would be really good, like if you're, right, a potato salad. And the ancient belief that rosemary assisted memory has been proven by modern science. That's really nice. So whether eaten with food, used as in oil form on like pulse points or temples, or simply smelled, it's been linked to several studies to increase cognitive performance. So I should have some in my office right now, and it's also currently being examined as possible pharmaceutical ingredient for future drugs that will battle Alzheimer's and Lou Gehrig's disease. And this is a still like they're still figuring all this out, but there's this carnosic acid in rosemary, and they've just one of the more recent studies has found that it could help against severe COVID-19 and other diseases. So it's like I don't know, to be continued on that one. And then what might be some ways to use it? Has anybody used it as a skewer, like for roasting vegetables or meats? There's actually a type of rosemary like that does that so well. It's actually called barbecue rosemary, and it's straight stems, and they're sturdy enough to be used for skewers for grilling vegetables and stuff like that. You know how it could impart the flavor? Kind of really cool. Oh, that's awesome. Alyssa says that they sell it at the Grow Hub. Um, yeah, yeah, using rosemary in the coffee would be a good idea. Okay, so um, another idea too would be placing rosemary sprigs around the pan. Like, say you roasted vegetables, just they'll add fragrance and taste to those spuds. This one is my favorite. I put it on a lot of different things. I actually like spicy pepper, and I saw some of you guys when you were talking about the favorite herbs. You definitely said the same thing. So hot pepper, just bring on the heat. So capsaicin is what's in that makes peppers hot, and it acts as a temporary pain remover. I went to a friend's house, an older friend, and in her bathroom she had a cream, right? And it actually, I looked at the ingredients, and it had capsaicin in it. And what you do, when you apply it topically, it creates like this warm tingling sensation. Some people feel like it's mild burning, so maybe some people don't like it as much, but it obviously would then cause immediate temporary relief from pain for some forms of arthritis, which can be really helpful. So it's like it has maybe a good spot there. It's also been helpful. Found that capsaicin cream, it was equally as effective as anti-inflammatory, like NSAID, so the non-steroidal, like the ibuprofen, in providing relief from knee osteoarthritis. And then just so we know that cancer, and then enhanced thermogenics. Have you ever heard that it might increase your metabolism to have things that are spicy? Maybe. Okay, so That is true, but it's you'd have to have a really large amount. So it's just a really small, minute effect, but it's kind of interesting, right? And that makes sense if you're sweating, right? So, and then also may increase satiety. So people who ate foods with spicy pepper, they felt satisfied sooner, and that's where that came from. And I always kind of wondered, I don't know if anybody's ever had anything too spicy, and then when you're younger, maybe you tried water to get rid of that, and then you tried milk, and you realized that milk worked. It's because there's a protein in milk called casein that helps break down the bonds that the capsaicin, that's that spicy thing, forms on nerve receptors. So it kind of helps wash it away. So that's why milk and milkshakes and things like that can help. And then talking about mint. So does anyone know what herb is a natural cross between water mint and spearmint? Does anyone know? It's a type of mint. It's a cross between water mint and spearmint. Yes, way to go. How did you know that? You guys are good. Yep, it's peppermint. So, and mint has been shown to help with indigestion, which is really great. And then it has that antimicrobial, antiviral compounds. It's an antioxidant. So these anti things, it's going against things that we don't want. So we don't want viruses. We don't want bacteria. We don't want the oxidants. Those are things that free radicals that cause aging. So we don't want that. And we don't want tumors either. So it's like these things are going against that. And allergies, that's the kind of the fun one about mint. It's like different than some of the other ones. And there's one of the most easy to grow perennial herbs for Florida gardens. There's lots of different kinds. You can use it in teas. You can try it with cucumber, citrus, and then there's those summer rolls I was talking about with the rice paper. And some things could be like mojitos salad dressing. It's an idea you could do. Mint juleps, mojitos paired with lamb. You could pair it with lamb with like a creamy yogurt sauce. It's good with crushed strawberries and then putting some mint in there. And then I'm doing that med instead of meds class, and there's a recipe we're making actually tomorrow. It's called ginger mango salsa, and that has mango, ginger, jalapeno, mint, and lime. So you can see getting a lot of spices there, a lot of different ones. So it's really good with things like the fruits and the sweets. Tabbouleh, has anyone had that? Maybe you guys know, seen what I'm talking about. It's a Middle Eastern salad, and it has bulgur, usually is the grain in there, and it's mixed with finely chopped ingredients like tomatoes, onions, and parsley. Okay, yeah, you guys definitely know what I'm talking about. Okay, and it also, so it goes with sweet things too. So if you can think of like the meats and then the sweeter things. So we've heard of like mint chocolate chip ice cream and those Andes mints. So you can kind of see where this is coming from. So mint with tea goes well with a smoothie then, also good with fruit and then with dessert. So that would be a good garnish to have with that. And then eat the garnish also. And the oregano, this one, like I talked about with the cinnamon, it's really high antioxidant activity. So they tested another group tested among 27 culinary herbs, 12 medicinal herbs, and they found it also higher than fruits and vegetables with this antioxidant activity. So, and that was in the fresh and dried form. So it's really like anytime you can use oregano, that would also be another one to add in. I'm gonna need to get all you guys. What we should have done is like a prize, they could, UFHR could send us like spices. Probably rosemary. They would send us rosemary. Yeah. Okay. So these are good questions. Yeah. How much of these do we need to eat? So there's all the studies, a lot of them have different amounts. So that's why it's kind of hard to be able to tell. Turmeric is one we're going to talk about. And that one, they're still trying to figure out the right dose, like how much we need to really make an effect. So a lot of them, with the studies, they do a large amount, just to kind of see if there's even going to be an effect. So it's like we're still teasing that out. I can say more on that. And then do dried herbs and spices have the same potency? So it depends on the freshness of the dried ones. I would say that the dried definitely still do. The fresh might be a little bit more, but yeah, that's that. Okay. And so just wanted to answer those, but this one, you know how we were talking about the preventing the bacteria and stuff? This one helps against salmonella and E. coli. So it's like if you put this in your foods, right? I mean, that would be pretty cool thing. Okay. So they were what we've been doing. Some studies have been testing using herbs and spices as preservatives. There was one that tested some herbs for preserving cod fillets. So and it was working, so that's good. There's options. Okay, and it's used in a lot of Greek and Italian dishes. Like in the UK, people put a lot on their pizzas. I think we do here too. Oregano and chicken go well together, or oregano and beans. And then great for pesto also, and it's good on Italian bread. And then I got to go to Greece, and that's the Greek salad right there. That is the traditional Greek salad. It doesn't even have lettuce, but the one herb that they use on top of it, you know, with all there's the feta, there's olives, and then they sprinkle oregano on it. Kind of fun fact. And it's often used in Italian cuisine. And then before we go to the next slide, um, cilantro. It's the leaves and stems, right? It comes from the same plant as what other spice? Does anyone know that answer? Ah, you're good, Wendy. Yes, coriander. Yeah, she was saying cilantro. Yep, her favorite. Okay, so the cilantro, like if it ever goes to flower, right? Once it goes to flower, those flower buds will turn, or flowers turn to the seeds, and the seeds are the coriander. So if you ever, I don't know, it always in Florida it gets hot, and sometimes then it starts flowering, and then you'll end up having coriander. So there's a dual benefit with this plant, and it has phytonutrients. It has that lutein and the zeaxanthin, and that's really good for our eyes. That's where it's mainly found, and it helps prevent your eyes from getting cell damage. And then the quercetin, it also has that. It's anti-inflammatory, so it could help reduce swelling, kill cancer cells, blood sugar, control blood sugar, not kill blood sugar. And it's been shown to help, against oxidative stress, also known as the coriander or Chinese parsley, and it's often used in Asian, Caribbean, Indian, and Latin American cuisine. Latin, yeah, and American, I would say, right? And you add the leaves at the end of the cooking because heat, it does not like heat. So this is a good one to buy fresh because it's kind of hard to dry and get the same flavor. Thyme, this is another of my favorite ones. I'm glad we had time to talk about it. Um, sorry. So thyme, it comes from the Greek word small. So if you are trying to figure out which like matching up which herb is which, this thyme, you can see it on the right picture there with the long stem. It's like it takes a lot of time to grow. The leaves are so little. And this one is actually found in Listerine. If you go look at a bottle, I just looked up it online to look at the ingredients again, just to confirm it's still in there. But if you look in Listerine, usually it has that thymol, thymol, excuse me, thymol, that's how you say it, and it appears to inhibit oral pathogens in the mouth. So it's just kind of like the salad, right? It's taking away the bacteria. That's why they put it in there. Oh, turmeric. This is big. I think it's become really big in the last, I don't know, amount of years I've been alive anyway. It's a yellow pigment and it comes from curcumin. So it's found in the turmeric and curry powder. It's found in turmeric and curry powder, and it suppresses tumor cell multiplication. Helps against inflammation, potential activity against cancer, diabetes, arthritis, Alzheimer's disease, heart failure. Um, I was looking at different things for this. It's like if you put almost anything, it would be like there's trying to been a study that's found a little bit of benefit with this. Maybe could help with depression, and then we talked about certain cancers, but we know that it really helps with inflammation, and that's probably one of the biggest studied thing. So our body, it's when things happen to our body and then our body over responds to it, we can show up as like joint stiffness or pain or fever, and that would be some inflammation. And that's things like turmeric can help with things like that. And it looks like it might actually help with, I mentioned that, Alzheimer's, arthritis. Just looking over, I made some notes on all the different studies, but cancers of the prostate, breast, and colon are the most intensely studied. And we know for sure it's antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. So you got that right. And it can help with prevent aging, emphysema, colon cancer. So we're still, and yeah, like the National Cancer Institute decided it's worth studying these extracts. It looks like it's, perfectly safe at reasonable doses. So I'm talking more about just eating them, and we know there's benefits to that, but it looks like, it could be a potential as actually taking it orally too, and maybe some of you already do that. But I just wanted to say in general, like if you can put it on your foods, that would be great also. And then it's hard to absorb this one. And so they found black pepper helps with its absorption a lot. And that's why if you ever see a turmeric like capsule, sometimes they'll be like turmeric plus black pepper, because those two together help you be able to absorb it better. Isn't that interesting? It's like black pepper has its own benefits. It's helping other things be absorbed. Okay. Oh, Pam, she said she does fresh turmeric and ginger tea with lemon zest every morning. So yeah, she's getting a bunch right there. Okay. Here's, we talked about that, possibly effective for depression, lowering triglycerides, and that's a fat in the body, buildup of fat in the liver. So if you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, it looks like this turmeric can help with that. Osteoarthritis, so it can reduce the pain and improve function with people with knee osteoarthritis. And like we've talked about with other ones, it can, in some research, worked as well as ibuprofen. It's kind of cool, how we could actually test that. People are taking ibuprofen and then some people aren't, and then seeing, I guess the pain and stuff from that. It's kind of interesting stuff. And I have to show you, we have it growing in the office right now outside. I'm in Polk County, so we are about in the middle of the state exactly. And those leaves and those flowers, that's turmeric. It is the most pretty thing, and you can actually use the leaves too, just like you would banana leaves or something. You could eat them, but they just, I tried once and it was a lot of chewing. So you could use them like banana leaves or something to wrap different dishes in it. Oh, that's cool. Gail has some too. Yeah, and it multiplies because it's underground. So kind of really neat thing. And I did some looking, because a lot of people have asked me about like the turmeric. So sometimes you might see a bottle and they'll say how many milligrams are in there. So 200 milligrams of curcumin is about equal to 1 teaspoon of turmeric. So if that helps, like you can kind of get an idea, maybe to put more in your tea or something like that. So a teaspoon is about the size of your thumb tip. All right, here's just some more of my favorites. So we have parsley. How do you grow it? You plant so he was just asking on turmeric and how you grow it. So you can get once you get, you can buy the little turmeric root, and then you can put it underground. And that's something else I should say too. With ginger and turmeric, you can store them in the freezer, and that's really helpful because sometimes you don't need like the whole thing all at one time if you do buy fresh. And what you can do is you can just use the spoon actually and peel off. There's like a papery peel on that, and then you can cut off how much you need, and you could stick it back in the freezer, and that's nice. But what you would do to get it to grow then is plant that root. So Gail says she got it at the farmer's market and then split it apart in the fall, and now she has several plants growing. So I think we should all try that too. Maybe getting lots of ideas. Okay, parsley. That's good with folic acid. And if you remember, if you've ever been pregnant, they suggest a lot of folic acid because it's helpful with making the body making new cells. So that's good for us always. Role in metabolism and energy too with the folic acid. And it has vitamin K. So that's needed for blood clotting and then bone formation. That vitamin K, it's the same thing that's in like dark leafy greens. So you're like getting a salad, just by putting these things on. Cumin, that one I always remember, it's just digestion. That's a good one for that. Dill, protect against cell damage. Sage, it may enhance cognitive function for those with mild Alzheimer's disease. And I have to say, in Morocco, they have, instead of salt and pepper in Morocco on the table, they have salt and cumin, which is kind of cool. I was like, they're on to something. And then chimichurri too. Chimichurri. I have trouble saying that word. Some of you might know what I'm talking about. It's that green, it's an uncooked sauce, and it's used in both cooking and then as a table condiment for grilled meat, but it's made with parsley. And here's some other ones I just wanted to, I guess, show, like ones I haven't really talked about, but studies have been shown that spices they're concentrated sources of these naturally occurring substances that protect cells from damage. So that's why you would just look at them, and if anyone asks you, what do you think, basil does for you? If you could just say anti and then name like inflammatory, bacterial, viral, you're probably gonna be right, or at least find something to back you up. There are a lot like that. And there's some that are a little bit different or been studied more in different ways, like the red chili. You see that pain reliever there. Garlic, we know, could help with cholesterol. And then saffron, antidepressant, which is kind of interesting. And then black pepper, you see how it says on there, it promotes digestion, which totally makes sense why, then with turmeric, it can go together so well. And I didn't put this one on there, but lavender, a couple of studies have found that reduce people who like smell it right after that, they reduce blood pressure and the heart rate. So if any of you have high blood pressure or are stressed a lot, I don't know how you would do that with these jobs, but just lavender can be really helpful in that. Okay, so just to kind of summarize then, health benefits of herbs. Not only are you reducing the salt because you can do that and then try like things like paprika or garlic or celery seed, basil, parsley, or savory. Those are ones that if you're trying to reduce the salt in the recipe, you could try adding those. And so you know how celery seed, celery salt, so celery naturally has some salt. And so that's why we see celery salt. So if you could just buy the celery seed, that would be better. And then reducing sugar, if you ever reduce sugar in recipes and you're like, oh no, people are going to tell. And so try putting cinnamon, ginger, allspice, cloves, or vanilla in there. They're the warming spices, and they stimulate something similar in our mouth that makes us feel like we've had sugar. And so it can help a little bit. Obviously, it's not the same as sugar, but worth a try anyway, or at least for some of it. And then storage, just that's pretty important. It's wanting fresh ones. You can store them in a cup in the fridge. So you put it. I don't know if anybody trying to think. That's one of the best ways I think to store cilantro. Maybe other of you guys have found other ways, but just putting cilantro, like how sometimes you don't need the whole thing all at once, and you have some left. And we all like cilantro, but you don't need it all at one time. So you can put it together like how they have it, and then put it in a glass of water, and then stick like the produce plastic bag over it and put it in the fridge, and it'll last for a pretty long time. And at least like I've had it go a couple of weeks, which is kind of nice because then when you need it again, it's there for you. Basil does not like the cold though, so that would be one you wouldn't want to put in the fridge. You could store it the same way in a glass, but leave it out or it'll turn brown. So fresh, then there's frozen. You could do that, but they're limp when thawed, so they'd be best in cooked dishes. And then the dried, they never spoil, but they do lose flavor and aroma. So one way to test it would be putting it on your, crushing it with your hand. And if you don't smell anything, maybe it's time for a new one. And here's just another way. These are some edible flowers in there too, but just thinking about doing it in ice cubes, or those ones that are yellow, those were in olive oil. So what you could do is you would fill a tray like a half full with water, and then you place a tablespoons of herbs in each compartment, and you can freeze for 24 hours. Then you top it off with some more water, and then you can just pop those ice cubes out and put them in a bag. So when you're ready to use them, you can just throw them in soups and stews like that. And harvesting is best in the mid-morning. So you want like the sun to evaporate the dew off the plant so it's not wet when you get it. But it's like the leaves, the sun would evaporate the dew but not stress the oils yet. So mid-morning would be good. All right. I know. Let's see. Okay. And then some interesting stuff. How many people have spices over 2 years old? I have to admit, I might. Thanks, guys. Making me feel better. Okay, so McCormick. So if you guys ever look at your spices, McCormick Spices added a best by date in 2004. So if you look and you don't see, if you see one of those McCormick tins or things, and there's no best by date or just any McCormick spice, you know that it's older than 2004, and that's and then so the spices in the rectangular tins, they're at least so there's they stopped making them 20 like over 27 years ago. Those tins, except for the black pepper. So um I'm guilty. My mom gave me an allspice one and a bay leaf one, and I still have the tin. So I know that they're very old. So just I guess recognizing that it might not have the same potency. Just need to shake them up a bit. Yeah. Oh no. Okay. So instead of the tins, yep, you guys got that. Um, General guideline when using fresh herbs is to use 3 times as much as a dried herb. So if you think dried, fresh, use more, and then when they concentrate, it'll shrink down, so you need less. So if you ever have a recipe that calls for, 1 teaspoon of something, like 3 times that would be 1 tablespoon. So maybe you would do 1 tablespoon fresh, or if you just had the dried, like if they called for fresh basil and you're like, I don't have fresh basil, maybe you could use the dried, and then you'd use 1 teaspoon or use a third less. Just thinking about ways to use them, then complementing side dishes like rosemary, potatoes, cilantro, um, the main condiment. So, like you guys were saying, pesto, yes, definitely basil. Seasonings, you can use them as garnish for dressings, vinegars, oils, honeys, dips, drinks. And then starting with when you're adding seasonings, using about 1 teaspoon, that's your thumb tip again, per 1 pound of meat. One lady, she said she was a chef and she was talking about using turmeric. And she said, some people have trouble figuring out like how to use it. And I understand because it has a little bit of a bitter flavor. And she suggested, which I think is a pretty good idea, is putting it in condiments. So if you ever use any condiment, like say you're making a burger and you have ketchup and mustard, mix it in there. If you're making egg salad or tuna salad and you have mayo, mix it in there. If you have salad, mix it in your salad dressing. So that could be one way just to help you remember to use it. Just kind of always put it in there. And I wanted to say too, marinades, they have herbs and spices, and they can be effective inhibitors of these chemicals that are sometimes produced when you cook meat at a high heat. And so, like well done meats and fried barbecue meats, they look like, if you do them on high heat, they can increase the risk of cancer. But they found that if you add a marinade with the herbs, that really helps decrease that, which is really neat. Or I think it's neat. And then trying different ethnic dishes that can help you get different flavor profiles. Like Patricia was talking about some different foods and how just she uses star anise sometimes, and just from different cultures, if you think of something that might be bland like a rice, and then you could just take it flavoring different ways, and that would give you a variety of herbs and spices. And here's just they also transform things that could be really boring into something fun. So not only do they have health benefits, but sometimes like it just looks more appealing to the eye, right? um, Oh, gal. Yeah. So Kathy said she used to be an executive chef and she used to color foods such as fried rice. Um, oh, that's really neat. Like the turmeric. Well, people are getting benefits and they didn't even know. So here's those chives again. And then salmon with dill sauce. If you guys have ever had that, it's really good. Or you can get yogurt and you put cucumber in it too, like the cucumber, like the sauce that if you ever had a gyro, that's with lamb meat, and then the pita, um, like tzatziki. That's what I was trying to think of. It can be really good with dill. And then parsley. A chef told me once that he said the curly parsley usually used for a garnish, and then the flat leaf parsley they use in dishes. That's what he was saying. Um, and then that's all I have. I was going to see if you guys wouldn't mind if you either scan this, or I made it a clickable link. I don't know if it'll work. But it's just a short survey and it's only 4 questions, but it could really help because Evaluation is important. So if anybody wouldn't mind doing that, and then I would love to take any questions. I don't know everything, but I've read a lot. So I'd love to help if I can. And I really thank you guys all for coming. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the feedback in the chat.